how to establish a code of conduct for your business. We are live from Accra, Ghana, and this is our first edition of the webinar series in English. We are glad you have joined us. Before we start the topic for today, we would now take our time and know what the Alliance for Integrity is, for those of us who are getting engaged with the Alliance for Integrity for the first time. So by way of background, the Alliance for Integrity is a multi-stakeholder initiative that involves stakeholders from the public sector, international organizations, private sector, and then also civil society. And what we do is we promote integrity within the economic system. So we involve businesses and their partners and other relevant actors. And then we work with a broad range of people, professionals in compliance, and then we share knowledge and then also support locally and internationally. So talking about supporting internationally, let's look at where we are active in the world. I mean, the various continents and countries we are active in as Alliance for Integrity. So as the map shows, we have our offices in Indonesia, India, Ghana, and Brazil, and then also Mexico. And from these regional hubs, we undertake other activities in Argentina, for instance, Chile, and then Uruguay, Colombia, and the rest. We'll get to know more about the respective activities in a moment. This is what we offer. We offer peer-to-peer learning and international exchange, and then we undertake public-private dialogue. We raise awareness and also share information on how companies can improve their compliance capacities. And then we also undertake our compliance training and train the trainer program. So the picture we see here is a peer-to-peer learning and international exchange going on in our last global conference in Buenos Aires, Argentina. For your information, the next global conference of the Alliance for Integrity comes off on the 22nd of February in Frankfurt, Germany. So for those of us who are interested and have not registered yet, this is the time. It's not too late. You can join us in Frankfurt for the Alliance for Integrity's global conference. There is information on how to register on our website. Talking about public-private dialogue, what we see here is an example of that when we had an advisory group meeting in Jakarta, Indonesia, and the members of this advisory group come from various sectors. So this is for the public-private dialogue, public sector sharing ideas with the private sector. And by way of awareness raising and information sharing for that matter, we always undertake publications. We publish tools for corruption prevention. What we see here is the No Excuses Pocket Guide. We published it in Ghana, adapted in Brazil, India, Indonesia, and recently Mexico, and also as well as Latin America. So we publish information to enable companies build their knowledge and understanding of integrity issues. Also, we have the Compliance Bulletin, which comes out every other month and is distributed to people within our network globally. So each time we feature an article from an expert with the aim of broadening the scope of people within our network so that they can improve their capacity to prevent corruption. Then the compliance training and train the trainer. This is one flagship program of the Alliance for Integrity, where we train businesses or business representatives for that matter in all the countries we are active in, so that they can gain knowledge and be able to implement corruption prevention systems in their organizations. So all we see here is a photograph of such a training taking place in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Then I'll take this moment to look at or to explain how the training program is. It's a three-phase approach. So we have the first phase, what we call train the trainer. In this phase, compliance experts from bigger companies are introduced to our modules, that is the Alliance for Integrity's training module. And they use that module to go and train others. So phase one, train the trainer. Experts are trained, they understand the module, and then phase 2, we organize our corruption prevention training. In Ghana, we call it the compliance training for businesses. In Latin America, we call it DEPI. In Indonesia, for instance, we call it DUKU. And this is a full-day training where the trainers that were previously trained in the Train the Trainer now become our facilitators, our experts. And they train business representatives on corruption prevention, be it internal measures to prevent corruption, external measures, or collective action, or collective measures for that matter. And then after the full day training, when the business representatives go back to their respective companies and are making steps to implement what they have learned, if they have any challenge at all, they can always get back to us. So we have a feedback system that we call the support desk. And this is an online platform where previous participants of our training programs can always ask us questions, and we use 72 hours. Within that period, we are able to get back to them with good tools, with good information to use to be able to implement their corruption prevention system. And our experts all over the globe help in addressing the questions that come from previous participants of our training program. In fact, we undertake other activities as we are doing now, all in the interest of building the capacity of businesses and then also sharing information, enhancing their knowledge about corruption prevention systems. At this stage, we would move on to the topic proper for today's webinar. That's how to establish a code of conduct for your business. And then during this session, we are going to take a number of items on the agenda. The first is we are going to learn what a code of conduct is, or a code of ethics is for that matter. And then we will look at why have a code of conduct? Why should a business have a code of conduct? And then we will learn about the benefits of a code of conduct. And then code of conduct, what to do. That is, what should you do when you are implementing or even establishing a new code of conduct for your business. And then we will take a look at the structure of a code of conduct. And then we'll summarize it with lessons learned. But we are not leaving you out. If you are joining us from around the globe, whether Ghana, Colombia, Brazil, Austria, wherever you've registered from and are joining us this morning, you can join the discussion by letting us have your questions. So the chat box on your screen is for questions. You can type your questions out, and then at the right time, our resource persons will take them one after the other and answer them. So you are not left out. Be part of this conversation, because at the end, we want everybody to be educated the more. So at this stage, we would move to our first presenter, and then I'll just introduce him briefly. He's in the person of Mr. Edwin Langma, a compliance consultant based here in Accra, Ghana. Edwin Langma has extensive experience in compliance and review of internal controls. He has attended several international and local courses on risk management, fraud, financial crimes prevention, and ethics. He was a senior audit associate in KPMG Ghana and has had previous experiences in the role of head of compliance in Access Bank Ghana and the then UT Bank Ghana. He's an examiner for the International Compliance Association in Anti-Money Laundering and Financial Crime, a member of the Association of International Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, and the Ghana chapter head of the Association of Certified Compliance Professionals in Africa, where he is a director of certification. Edwin was until recently the head of compliance at Universal Merchant Bank in Ghana, and now is a full-time consultant. Mr. Edwin Langma, you now have the floor. Please take it over.
Thank you very much, Raymond, and thank you, Alliance for Integrity. Greetings to all the participants. To discuss with you what a code of conduct is, why have a code of conduct, and then the benefits of having a code of conduct. So to start, a code of conduct is a formal document that establishes behavioral expectations of an organization's stakeholders, primarily its employees. We can also define it as a set of written principles that work in furtherance of the organization's mission statement. The other word to remember in this vein is ethics. Ethics is the moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conduct of an activity. So what are we saying here? The code of conduct is the set of principles that is documented by an organization in order for stakeholders, primarily its employees, to be guided in their behavior. Now, why have a code of conduct? Firstly, the code of conduct is the cornerstone of the corporate ethics system and organizational culture. So in brief, the code of conduct is what points to what is expected of the employees in the organization. Secondly, it lays down a set of ethical values, principles, and standards. So what we are basically saying is the code of conduct provides the roadmap as to what the do's and don'ts in the organization. A code of conduct describes employees' responsibilities and the conduct of the company expects of them. It documents what the company expects of behavior when it comes to employees. The fourth one, the code of conduct facilitates decision making and provides some level of predictability regarding the values and principles that govern the organization. Once it is documented, it is clear for all to see. That's one reason why we have the code of conduct. The code of conduct also protects the organization's reputation and public image. With the documentation of a code of conduct, everyone understands. It sends a clear message that this organization is a serious organization. Lastly, it provides a clear reference point for enforcing corrective action. In case of breaches, no one can claim that we didn't know this, it was not documented, it was not explained to me. The code of conduct provides a very clear reference point. It provides a very clear roadmap of what is to be done in terms of when an employee or when a stakeholder probably does something contrary to the organization's aspirations. These are the reasons why we have a code of conduct. I hope I'm not moving too fast. So to sum it up, why have a code of conduct? We say it incorporates ethical values into the organization's culture. You would appreciate that ethical values are things that they are not hard things that you can measure, or like a financial statement that has figures to back it. So what the code of conduct does is to provide, to be able to wrap these up. It provides the expectations. It puts all in one book, if you like. You'd say it's the Bible of the organization. It tells the do's and the don'ts in the organization. Secondly, it provides guidance to those facing ethical dilemmas. So in the execution of employees' day-to-day duties. Employees come across so many issues that they have to deal with. For instance, a gift has been presented to me. What should I do? What should I not do? Should I take this gift? Who should I tell? Who should I saw someone doing this, who should I report to, etc., etc., etc. The code of conduct clears all these ethical dilemmas. How should our company relate to other companies in terms of A, B, and C dilemmas? The code of conduct leaves nothing in doubt for the organization's employees and other stakeholders. Now, these are the benefits of a code of conduct. So, with our knowledge of why we should have a code of conduct, we want to examine the benefits of a code of conduct. The first one is that it provides a framework of professional or desirable behavior. As I intimated earlier, the code of conduct provides a clear framework. It doesn't leave things between the gaps. Employees and other stakeholders are clear in their minds what the organization stands for in terms of ethics, in terms of behavior. So it provides that framework within which employees and stakeholders work. The second point we have to note about the code of conduct is that it sets out required standards and principles. It sets out the required standards and principles and prevents violations. What I will say is it prevents innocent violations. Because the code of conduct is documented, you do not have the case where employees fall short of their ethical expectations and come out and say, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I didn't know what I had to do, so I relied on my own judgment. The one benefit of a code of conduct is that it prevents these innocent or seemingly innocent violations. It therefore follows that where there is no code of conduct, then breaches or employees can be justified. Because you say, yes, you didn't tell me, no one told me that I was not supposed to behave like this, no one told me that I was not supposed to do that. The third aspect is that it contributes to ensuring transparent corporate management. A code of conduct provides transparency in corporate management. So in managing every situation, the rules are very clear because they are documented and it applies in the same way across board. It will not be like, okay, you favored Mr. A because Mr. A did the same thing that I did, but what were the considerations for treating him the other way? So the absence of a code of conduct removes such transparency. It could have been communicated, but it is no longer clear how transparent the organization is with regard to ethical behavior. The code of conduct provides clarity in this regard. The fourth point worthy of note is that the code of conduct improves stakeholder confidence by showing that the organization values integrity. Every organization that is looking forward and that seeks to grow will embrace a code of conduct, because stakeholders now become confident that you take ethics seriously and there is some measure of integrity within the organization. People value the fact that an organization takes its time to document a code of conduct. So stakeholders
Thank you very much, Edwin. We had a very good presentation, but the network was not so good. So we will continue from here. Edwin, if you can hear me, yes, thank you very much for that session. We couldn't see you anymore. You can always come back in as we make progress. So at this stage, I would introduce the next presenter. Edwin will come in when he's able to connect with us subsequently. And then our next presenter is Frank Owusu-Ansah. Frank is the Terminal and Corporate HSSE Manager for APM Terminals Ghana Limited, responsible for managing general health, safety, security, and environment risk for APM Terminals and SLA partners in Ghana. Frank has worked for the MERS Group in Ghana for 13 years in different responsible positions. Frank has a BA in Sociology from the University of Ghana, Master of Science in Logistics Management from St. Clement University, UK, and also holds an advanced certificate in Safety and Security Management from NEBOSH and Control Risk. Frank has facilitated 2 previous training workshops for the Alliance for Integrity, and even added a 3rd one recently. So today, he's going to take the 2nd session on how to establish a code of conduct for your business. Please always, participants, always send your questions, and then they will answer them. Frank will answer them, Edwin will answer them. So at this stage, we hand over to Frank Owusu-Ansah. Frank, you can take it over.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity and the platform to interact with our participants all over the world. And as you said, my responsibility this morning is take us through when we talk about code of conduct, what to do. Best if you do not have a code of conduct in place. So I'll continue from where he left off. And when we talk about code of conduct as per the definition he's given us, it has to do with the behaviors, the defined behaviors in an organization. That organization consider and accept it and consider that to be very acceptable in its operation. So here we can see that every organization, when it's set up, it seeks to have some form of uniformity when it comes to employees' behavior, what to do and what not to do. So first of all, once we know the importance, then we need to go through what we need to do to get a code of conduct. And I must say here that code of conduct may differ from organization to organization. But what is common is that mostly influenced by the industry standards and the governing laws. It depends on which country that company is setting or is operating from. So the point number one, as I can talk about when it comes to what to do, is first of all, we need to get a commitment from the management of that organization. Here, the commitment may come in varied forms. Are the management willing and have the desire to do it? If they are willing and have the desire to do it, then they need to commit some resources when it becomes necessary. So when management show commitment, that's what we refer to a tone from the top. Then the rest of the employees and the the partners and stakeholders appreciate the direction that management will want to go. Then we can look at what we call the senior management should form a working team or representatives. Now, there's the need for us to ensure that we get input from across the organization, but this may differ in terms of style as to how to do that. Because if it's a multinational organization, then you need to know it's a very big organization, so you need to have representatives from all the sections in the department, or the departmental heads need to meet with their teams and then come forward with their input. If it's a small scale organization, then you can have a one-on-one kind of discussion with the management team and have the heads of the department putting forward also the input from their team. But what I want to say is that you need to have the buy-in of the whole team. And if you have the buy-in of the whole team, then you are heading to success, because the people who identify themselves with it as having put forward what they themselves want to do and support management to do. Then we say identify the main values that govern the company's action. Here, it is very important that you ensure the code of conduct that you are drafting or you are putting in place is connected directly with the mission statement of the organization. Here, the vision, basically, we know organizations are set up with visions. It's what we call the future expectations of the organizations, or what the organization seeks to, the bigger picture, what they seek to achieve in a distant future. Now, if organization has the vision, then the mission is what will take the organization there. And you need to have that connection. That is, the code of conduct must have a connection with the mission and the vision of the organization. Then we say that identify the main values that govern the company actions. And the model code of conduct in the industry that are also company. Identify and analyze the model code of conduct in the industry that the company is involved in. This is very critical, because you need to know the industry your company operates. It could be in the maritime industry, it could be in the financial sector, it could be in the distribution sector. The industry may have some compelling issues, and you should be able to also make sure when you are drafting your code of conduct, it takes into account what the issues may be in that industry and what you are seeking to achieve with regards to your employees complying to the rules and regulations. Now, what I want to say from here is that code of conduct must also cover what we call the company's core values. The company core values must lie right in the heart of a code of conduct. And what is core values? Core values are the fundamental beliefs of an organization or the company. You need to be able to make sure that it captures the core values, and the core values define the behavior of the company employees in their day-to-day activities and operations. So when you are able to do that and have the synergies, then employees can identify themselves with it because they know the company core values. They can identify themselves because they know the company mission and the vision. Now, what I want to say further here is that when you are defining code of conduct, there's the need for you to be simple in the terms and the language you use. Simple, clear, and specific. You should try to avoid what we call the jargons or the legal terms. If you try to make it strict, like a legal kind of document, employees will not feel comfortable and will not patronize it. And right from the beginning, if you are an organization that works with unions and associations, then they will begin to read meanings into that. Then it has to be communicated. Of course, this is a very important document which is trying to introduce employees to the do's and the don'ts. It needs to be communicated. And when employees become aware of the document and even become aware that the document exists, that becomes helps with the process of also getting the buy-in of the employees. Because if they are not aware, if they don't know it, they cannot comply with it. Then we look at the training. Training brings understanding and also clarifies some of the ambiguities or the issues that the employees might have identified with it during the drafting stage. Then it can be ironed out by the management And then when it's sign up, people then understand it and they can identify themselves with it. And then they can comply with the rules and regulations that have been set in there. I must say here that Code of Conduct basically refers to the rules and the regulations and the standard of organizations. And in our organization, we know that we have what we call the policy document. We have compliance document. You may have even rules of engagement. But your Code of Conduct is seeking to harmonize and let employees from one document appreciate what exists for them to be complied with. Now, we need to also talk about endorsement. Endorsement comes in two forms: endorsement by the management and endorsement by the employees. If management have been part and every management team member have committed to it, it becomes easier for them to accept what is provided in and assign to it. The same way, if inputs have been taken from employees across the organization of the company, then it becomes easier for them to sign to it. Now, when this is done, it becomes necessary to have one person or a desk that we can describe to be a go-to desk, that employees can always refer to and go to and seek clarifications, or whenever they have queries to refer. In some organizations, normally it's being done by an HR officer or the compliance officer or any other person who may be appointed to be responsible for that. Now we look at the structure. We have talked about the benefits and why you need to have Code of Conduct and what to do. As when I started, I mentioned that Code of Conduct or Business Code of Conduct may differ from organization to organization, but there's the need for us to have what we call the good structure or the content of a Code of Conduct. First of all, a Code of Conduct needs to have a title. The title must be appealing and must be conducive. Appealing in the sense that employees should be able to refer to it and should be able to identify themselves with what the heading is and what the provisions are in the Code of Conduct. It's the organization or the company should avoid using, some legal jargons and some titles that will rather cause employees to read meanings to it. Table of contents, yes, it's important. And that should cover what has been stated in there, what you are seeking to cover. When we talk about the mission and the vision, already you have defined as an organization what you are into and what you have established your company to achieve. It may include your product, your services. So the content must also cover all that. And the content helps the readers to easily make references and also identify the topic in the whole document. The message from the top is very critical. Mostly, this message should be found at the preface or during the introductory sheet of the Code of Conduct document. And mostly, if it is a multinational organization, then it has to be given by the CEO. If it's the other organization or small, medium-scale organization, the MD has to give this statement. And if it's a small scale, the owner or the partners, any of them should give this statement. It is very important because from employees' perspective, they are able to refer to it that this is coming from the top management, and the management themselves have shown commitment to it. And in one of the organizations, these are practical. In my organization where I work, for example, the men's group, the CEOs always provide a message when it comes to a very important document. One of them is the Code of Conduct. And then CEO's message to employees helps employees to really respect, and they also appreciate that the message is coming from the CEO who himself has committed to it. Mission statement and the vision is the next that one has to look at. And I think I've explained it in the earlier slide. Mission, what is the company doing, your organization doing to achieve your vision? You have already set out your vision, your future expectations. You need to define that and connect it to your Code of Conduct so that all the employees will appreciate that there is that connection, that synergy. and management are coherent and they are consistent with what they are trying to achieve or what the organization is trying to achieve. Recommended behavior. In the code of conduct, because code of conduct is bringing together, making it handy for employees, what the rules and regulations, the policy guidelines of the organizations are. It's important for the company to outline some of these recommended behaviors, and it has to be a list of them. And employees must be able to refer to that these are the behavior that management or the company requires of us, and it should be able to refer to when it comes to resolving issues or when they have grievances that need to be addressed. And even when there are disputes and it comes to settlement, they should be able to refer to what has been stated in the code of conduct. Additional resources. Now, the materials that are used to develop the code of conduct must be stated as well. And when it's stated, then it helps employees also to make references to them. Then we look at the enforcement and disciplinary actions. Yes, when you develop such document, the objective is to ensure compliance, and it is to ensure that employees at a high level comply with the do's and don'ts in the organization, or you are seeking to have some uniformity when it comes, and that should cut across in the way the company delivers its businesses and services to customers. So the non-compliance, when there are violations, there should be some form of sanctions, and indeed, you can even state some rewards for employees who stay glued to the company rules and regulations. Endorsement. Endorsement here means that when they sign to it, and every member of the organization, every employee from the top management level to the least has to sign. But how do they sign? That's why I mentioned the training. They need to go through the training for them to understand the details and appreciate it. And then once they have also made provisions or they have made inputs during the drafting, and once it's complete, it becomes a complete document, then employees will easily endorse it. Now, having ended from that point, for the sake of time, I will want to summarize it that so far, we've looked at what a code of conduct is. We've gotten to know the benefits of a code of conduct. We've seen the definitions, which means that it defines the main principles and the standard of a conduct expected in an organization. Yes, companies set owners, principals, directors set companies, and they expect to achieve some objectives. But you cannot achieve such objectives if there is chaos in the organization. So they seek to use code of conduct to get employees to behave in a uniform way. Again, it must be communicated to. It must be understood and accepted by all. And how do you communicate? We communicate to employees depending on the size of the organization. You need to have sections, training sections. You need to have meetings at management level, task the respective functional managers to engage the employees and then communicate to them. And this must be documented. And then when they understand it, definitely acceptance becomes an easy process. It must be updated as required. Yes, it's a code of conduct must be seen as a live document. It must be relevant to the times because there are changes in the organization. It's true, the organization set visions. Over time, visions may change, and when vision changes, the mission statement will also change. The same comes to the code of conduct. It must be revised to reflect the organizational behavior at the time. And also, if there are some regulational changes or changes in the law that enjoins the organization to also behave in a different way, then there's the need for the code of conduct to be documented and must be enforced by ensuring that there are consequences for breaches. I've stated that. The objective for having a code of conduct is not, so to speak, to punish employees, but because of the fact that you want to have some uniformity, because of the fact that you want to avoid chaotic situations when there are conflict or when there are disputes. That's why the code of conduct is developed, is to help employees help management to settle dispute, because already it's been defined, or they have been defined, the way to resolve dispute, the behavior of employees, how you want them to behave, and how it's supposed to be integrated into the operations of the organization are all defined. But of course, when they are in organizations, there are people that we call them the risk takers. When they take the risk and they go against it, it must be enforced to send a good signal to the rest of the employees to desist from violating the code of conduct they themselves has consented to. Thank you very much. And at this stage, I want to pause here if there are some questions.
Edwin, thank you, Frank, again. We lost Edwin earlier, and then we want to go back to Edwin so that he can finalize that section, the benefits of having a code of conduct. So, Edwin, you have the next 5 minutes to finish your session that you couldn't finish because of the network problem. Take it over, Edwin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raymond. Thank you very much, Frank. I think Frank has done justice to the topic so far. Thank you very much. I was about finalizing the points on the benefits of the code of conduct. But if you listen to Frank well, Frank has captured very much my thoughts. The last point I wanted to make was that the code of conduct provides a very clear reference point for enforcing corrective action. And Frank alluded to that. The essence of the code of conduct is not to outline punitive measures to kind of penalize errant employees, but rather it is outlined to prevent chaos, to regulate employee and stakeholder behavior. Let me say that we have spoken about employees generally spoken about employees, but one thing we should also keep in mind is that the code of conduct regulates the organizational behavior relative to other stakeholders as well. So in terms of the code of conduct, it speaks to how the organization would like to relate to, let's say, competitors as well, and customers, etc., etc. The code of conduct promotes the business environment as organizations will generally deal with other ethically minded organizations. When we spoke about why have a code of conduct, we did say that if you have a code of conduct, then organizations take you seriously because they know that this is an enterprise or a company that is serious about doing business with integrity. So organizations generally will gravitate towards other organizations that have code of conduct in place because they know that the organizations are regulated in terms of business integrity, and then they are mindful of what their employees do in terms of integrity. So if an organization does not have this code of conduct, and it is getting there, businesses will naturally prefer not to deal with, I mean, all things being equal, a business that is integrity minded, as most global businesses are, will prefer to deal with organizations that have code of conduct in place relative to those organizations which have not. So these are the benefits of a code of conduct. I believe that we should look at the benefits and then look at what we stand to lose if we do not put such a document in place and embrace this code of conduct. Thank you very much. For the sake of time, I would end here. Raymond, thank you very much. You can come in at this point.
Thank you very much, Edwin, for wrapping that section up. And then we have been expecting questions from participants. None has come through yet. We still have a little over 5 minutes to finish this session. And the floor is open. If you have a question, just type in the chat panel on your screen for all our participants. And then whilst we wait for questions, Frank, in case you had some points you wanted to add, kindly feel free and come in now. I know you have some wonderful phrases from your own code of conduct for APM terminals that you want to share with participants. You can go ahead and do so now.
I think it's about sharing best practices as we get together with our participants. If a company has rules, regulations, and policies and the laws that governs the operations of the organization, why then do you need to have a code of conduct? The most important response is that code of conduct, of course, goes beyond the laws or the rules and regulations, because I made earlier reference to the core values of our organization. Core values define an organization, and is the code of conduct that seeks to create harmony with all the rules, the regulations, and the laws, and the compliance document that an organization may seek to have. So even though we have laws, we have rules and regulations, code of conduct in that sense becomes very important document. It is that seeks to ensure that once employees on the day-to-day basis transacting business with the organization or the company's clients, competitors, as Edwin mentioned, they come to terms with what the organization expects from them. The appropriate behaviors must be must be ingrained in the operations of the organization. So basically, this is what I wanted to add. Yes, organizations may have laws, may have rules, may have regulations, but you need to have a code of conduct to create harmony and to help employees to identify themselves with that one document that highlighting unacceptable behavior that organization requires of them. And then when they go against it, what is expected of them. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Frank. And since we do not have questions, we would save the time so that our participants can move on to something else. I must say the Alliance for Integrity is very, very thankful to our two presenters for this session, Mr. Edwin Tete Langma, who is a compliance consultant based here in Accra, Ghana, and then Mr. Frank Owusu-Ansah, who is the corporate HSSC manager for APM terminals based in Tema here in Ghana. We are very grateful to our participants for joining us from around the globe. After this session, that is not the end. We have so many activities coming up. You can always visit allianceforintegrity.org and then follow our events and then participate anytime we are close to where you are. We are represented globally, as I mentioned earlier, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and then in West Africa, we have our office in Ghana, and then the Secretariat is in Berlin, Germany. Do join us for our upcoming global conference of the Alliance for Integrity in Frankfurt on the 22nd of February. That's just next week. It's not too late to join us. Over here in Ghana, we are located in the GIZ Green Building in the airport residential area. Our contacts are right here on the screen. You can email us afin-ghana@giz.de or give us a call. Yeah, the numbers are displayed right there. After this session, this particular presentation is going to be uploaded live, as in online, on YouTube. So visit our social media channels. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on Google+, and we are on LinkedIn. And then on YouTube, this presentation is there. You get the opportunity to also look at previous webinars and then be able to improve your capacity to be able to prevent corruption within your organization and also outside your organization. We encourage you to spread the word, talk to a business partner about the Alliance for Integrity, talk to a friend, a professional about the Alliance for Integrity, and take advantage of all the benefits it brings. We have training programs coming up next month here in Ghana, and then details are on the website. We have training programs in Latin America. We have other awareness raising activities all over the network around the globe. So we want to encourage you to continue to patronize our activities, and then together we can help create a better business environment. Thank you very much from Accra, Ghana. I'm signing out now. We thank you all for joining us. Visit our page on YouTube and you can see a recording of this particular webinar. Thank you and bye for now from Accra, Ghana. Bye.